What's going on, guys? So we are now just a few days away from the release of Friday the 13th. With that being said, this is potentially the last bit of news I will be dropping on you guys before we actually have our hands on the game, which, as most of you can feel, is amazing. But for the sake of you getting what you clicked onto this video for, let's just jump right into it. First up, we have some news or information that was buried deep within the game's Reddit. Here we have a post by Brando2021 submitted over a month ago. Brando raised the question about console updates and PC updates or patches to the game and whether or not PC would have to wait to get these patches until they were ready for console or pass their certification. And amongst a lot of discussions in the comments, we have a response from Wes from Gun, who is Wes Keltner, the founder of Gun Media, which is the team that's working with IllFonic to bring us this game. Wes blatantly states, PC players will not wait for console certification of patches. This means that when the patches are ready to be pushed out to the game, PC players will get them right away. Now, I'm sure a lot of you out there, PC players and console players alike, are wondering how this is good news for everybody. A lot of you likely see this as great news for PC players, but bad news for those on console. And no matter what your stance on this is, I'm still just going to highlight some of the pros to doing things this way. First up, the very obvious thing. PC players will always get to play the latest and hopefully most stable iteration of the game. But in a way, this is also good for those on console. A change, update, or patch to the game that's pushed out could potentially put the game in a worse state than it previously was in. While this is unlikely to happen, the likelihood of at least a few players not liking the changes implemented with a patch is relatively high. Alongside this, PC players will always have the responsibility of being the test dummies for changes made to the game and seeing if they're worth putting through to console. Again, I think this is a good thing for both PC players and console players. PC players get to play and sort of test the changes to the game, while console players, if they so choose, can watch gameplay on this later version of the game that they don't yet have their hands on, and adapt to all the changes that are going to be made in one bigger patch on their platform. I just happen to think that there are an equal amount of pros and cons to both sides of this. There are pros and cons to the more frequent updates on PC, and there are pros and cons to the less frequent updates on consoles. But with all of that being said, I was surprised that this didn't seem to get any coverage, as it was somewhat a significant piece of information and definitely something that I was wondering. I know that a lot of the community was split with consoles holding PC release back, with some people saying that the game should release on PC first and consoles down the road, and the others saying it should definitely release for all platforms at the same time. This has me really curious as to how you all feel about this information. Do you think it's a good thing? Or do you think game updates or patches should be released at the same date for all platforms? Let me know in the comments below. This next thing is a pretty small but welcome change. It's not necessarily anything I remember anybody in the community requesting, but it's a nice little touch to the game. This news came from Wes Keltner on Twitter a few days ago. The female counselors in Friday the 13th will now have dynamic hair. Simply put, this means moving hair. The tweet included a short GIF which I will roll for you guys now. So again, definitely not the biggest change to the game we've seen thus far, but it's still a nice touch. And the clip also reminds me how much I'm looking forward to playing as AJ. And for this last bit of information today, we're going to be discussing the latest information that we've got on game key deliveries for those who backed the project. It's been a pretty common topic of discussion on the game's Reddit, and it's finally been answered, sort of, with more uncertainty. Anyway, real quick for those of you who don't know, if you backed the game's development with a certain dollar amount, you got yourself a copy of the game. You could choose what platform and whether or not you got a physical or digital version. The developers later retracted physical versions of the game, and those who requested physical copies will get a digital key for release, and then later down the road they'll be shipped a physical version. So, more or less everybody who backed the project for a copy of the game is getting a key. The key will be sent to the email used when backing the game, but we don't know when we will get the keys. With release as close as it is, people really want to know when they'll be delivered their game key. Just yesterday, we got a credible tweet telling us what's going on with this. The answer, as for when we will be receiving our game keys, is said to be when Microsoft, Sony, and Steam send them to the game's developers. So, as it appears, the game's developers don't even know when they'll have the keys able to send out to those who backed the project. Hopefully this doesn't turn out to be any sort of big deal and we still get the game on time, but it would certainly suck if players had to wait a bit into release day to get their hands on this game, as the ones who backed the game are likely those who have been waiting the longest. I know that I myself would just buy an additional copy of the game on Steam, not only because the developers deserve the money in my opinion, but because I want to play it. And eventually I'll get emailed a key that I can then give away to somebody, so another person gets to enjoy the game. But I know that not everybody is in a place to do this, so I'm hoping, while also thinking that we'll get the keys on time. But that's everything for today's news. I know there really wasn't any groundbreaking information in here, but I also know that there are a lot of you out there who care about these smaller updates. Anyway, if you haven't already, be sure to like the video and subscribe for future Friday the 13th content, including daily uploads once the game is released. It's a few days from release now, so I hope you are all ready for the content bombardment that's about to go down. For the first couple of weeks, I'll be streaming pretty much daily, and I'm planning to stream right here on YouTube. Depending on how things go, I may venture on to Twitch, or just cycle back and forth between the two of them. But a lot of you have been asking about streaming, so I hope that answers your questions. But anyway, to those of you that made it this far into the video, thank you so much for the support. And until next time, guys, thank you for watching the video. That's gonna happen. We had all that great gameplay. And, oh, Jason fixed us. So, that's unfortunate. I mean, once this beta's up, I'm going to compile everything from all of my streams and go ahead and make a sort of bug video, not necessarily to call up the developers. I think they did an excellent job, but just some quick things that they maybe be able to look at and say, oh shit, this needs to be fixed for this reason. At least that was a cool death. But as you guys saw, Jason broke the box while we were calling the police, and the camera got stuck on the phone, and we couldn't actually follow our character.